Practice makes perfect. Just be yourself, man. Just go with the flow. Yeah, I know, pretty cringe. It can't be that simple, right? You're talking to a really beautiful girl, and at first, everything seems to be going great. You start with all the basic questions. What's your name? What do you do? Are you from around here? For the first 30 seconds, you're in the zone. You're leading the conversation. She seems quite interested, smiling, laughing, maybe flicking her hair a little bit, and then, boom, that's when it happens. You've officially ran out of things to say. You get nervous, and at this point, you want to ask for a number or for a coffee. But you know it's too soon to do that. But you don't know what else to say. So then you struggle for words. Almost 5 seconds of silence go by, and at this point, it's an emergency. You have no choice. You have to say something. So you get creative, and you ask her if she has any pets. Thank God that was close. But then, you notice her facial expressions change. Her smile turns into a more neutral expression, or maybe a frown in some cases. She no longer seems interested as she was before. If this keeps happening to you, keep watching. Because in this video, I'm going to tell you the most important lesson I've learned after going from being a very self-conscious, sexually frustrated, RuneScape addicted teenager diagnosed with Asperger's to really being able to express that best version of myself to women that I really like without straining my mind or being lost for words. This is something I've never thought would be possible because I always thought that having Asperger's meant having to deal with a shitty dating life no matter what. I did this by leveraging something I call feedback quality, which I'll uncover in a couple of minutes. I'll also explain in this video why practicing social skills might make you socially worse if you do it the wrong way, obviously. As a cherry on top, I won't tell you to be yourself. I'll actually tell you how to be yourself. No bum fluff, just sweet, beautiful logic. But first, you're probably thinking, who on earth is this cocky bastard and why should I hear what he has to say? Well, my name is Michael and as you've just heard, I have Asperger's. I don't know about you, but whenever I asked for dating advice, I'd get these really cringe, fluffy, vague phrases designed to try and make me feel good, but without any logical steps to follow at all. Back when I was a 14-year-old boy in secondary school, I was too busy worrying about whether I'd get a girlfriend instead of what I wanted to study or do with my life. It was basically the worst time of my life. And back then I had almost no friends to hang out with during breaks and lunchtimes. I'd just be on my own like 90% of the time. And because of my Asperger's, I didn't really know how to talk to people and make friends. And whenever I said anything, people thought I was really weird and they would just avoid me. And during breaks and lunchtimes, I would basically walk around the school in circles to make other people think I'm on my way somewhere. Whenever I'd see couples kissing each other, smiling, holding hands, I felt very frustrated, both emotionally and sexually, almost as if I was missing out on some fundamental human experience that everyone else got to enjoy apart from me. After a depressing day of school, I'd usually be excited to come home and play some RuneScape. For those of you that don't know, it's a large MMORPG game, and it was quite popular back then. I'd just play that game, and then for the remainder of my 6 hours of the day, I'd forget the fact that I didn't have a girlfriend, or just real life in general. My self-improvement journey, it began with a pickup artist I found on YouTube. I really wanted a girlfriend. I just did anything I could to do so. The thing with pickup artists is I like the reasoning behind what they did. It seemed very grounded in logical frameworks. And that's because they analyze body language, tone of voice, gestures, what to say, how to say it, when to say it, and so on. But here's the thing. The logical advice helped me understand things better, but I couldn't really make use of it in real time when I'm talking to people. There's no way I could juggle all these different factors in my mind. Things like her emotional state, your state, how much she trusts you, level of eye contact, body language, what you've said, the time of the day, her plans, and how these variables interact and intersect with one another. I'd end up looking stupid and 10 seconds behind the conversation because I'm thinking about all this shit. And on the flip side, the fluffy, vague advice that everyone else gave me, it sounded quite nice, but it felt like a wise old man giving me an annoying riddle to solve without any step-by-step process. I felt trapped. I didn't know what to do. Fast forward to 2023, I'm 27 right now. I've been in 2 long-term relationships. I've gotten to know the most amazing women from all walks of life. I also have a group of friends that I'm really close with. So how did I get here? Well, at some point in my journey, I thought enough was enough. I chose to try a different approach. I started from first principles and I completely dropped all the traditional advice. I'm confident now that as long as I stick to this new approach, one that incorporates feedback quality, everything makes so much more sense. To understand this a little bit better, Think back to whenever someone told you to just be yourself. What could that mean? When am I myself? Am I not myself sometimes? After some intense thinking around the subject, it finally hit me. There were times where I felt more like myself, and other times where I didn't. When I spoke to an attractive woman, I wasn't myself. But when I spoke to my friends and family, I was myself. The problem is, how do we be ourselves all the time? I'm talking about that state of relaxedness and friendliness that you're operating from. Whenever you talk to people that are close to you, you probably make jokes, banter. You don't really think about what to say at all. It's interesting, isn't it? Why is it so hard for us to express that playful version of ourselves? And that's exactly what I've learned to tap into. It starts by understanding the following formula. Your social skill level is equal to the number of social interactions multiplied by feedback quality factor. Bear with me for a sec. For the average neurotypical, fuck it. Just have more interactions, talk to more people. Usually you'll get better over time fairly quickly. But for autistic guys like us, the problem is this feedback quality factor, this FQF component. It's the limiting factor. And that means no matter how hard you practice, if this FQF is not finely tuned, it will hold you back. If you don't work on improving the FQF, you'll constantly feel stuck in a frustrating loop where it feels like no matter how much you practice, you just can't make any real progress. Okay, Michael, stop taking the piss. What the hell is this feedback quality factor? Think of FQF as how well you're able to process incoming feedback, like what people say or do, how they say or do it. These are subtle contextual clues that involve body language and tone of voice. These clues are really important because they create something called the premise for the conversation. And the premise, it basically sets the tone and can influence the direction of the interaction. When FQF is bad, it can make you feel worried. This happens because you don't know what to expect from the conversation. You don't know what's expected from you specifically. You might find it hard to know what to say next. I've seen this a lot from autistic guys on Reddit describing how they ruin it with women. And a big part of it is they're overthinking it. And it makes perfect sense. I can understand why that happens. Obviously, if I'm unsure of what's expected of me in a conversation, either I'll guess what to say, or I'll overthink what I should say, and I'll look nervous the whole time. It really makes sense to naturally overthink things to compensate for that lack of clear feedback. Without further ado, here are the 3 things that worsen your FQF. Number 1, burnout. When I'm exhausted, all I feel like doing is relaxing and playing games. I feel like there's some kind of brain fog that clouds my awareness and makes me less aware of my environment in general. When that happens, it's hard to focus on being present and aware in a social setting. If I'm burned out, I'm going to find it hard to have the social energy to engage that well with the other person in the first place. Next up, anxiety. I used to be a really anxious person. When anxiety took over and filled my mental bandwidth, I didn't feel myself. It took a lot more effort for my brain to read social cues and be intuitive in general. I couldn't think of things to say, and I'd end up coming across really desperate by saying random shit to fill the silence. The conversation just didn't flow well. This might be because during an anxious state of mind, there's a part of your brain called the fear center, which is called the amygdala, and that takes control, whilst the decision-making part, the prefrontal cortex, is pushed aside. And that leaves you in a state of fear, a state of hypervigilance. There's no way social information can be processed effectively in that state. Imagine being chased by a tiger. You're not going to feel like socializing with someone. You're too anxious. You're like, well, I need to get out here. It's like trying to make a car go forward whilst the handbrake is engaged. And the final thing, number 3, negative subconscious reinforcement. Yes, I've completely made that phrase up, but hear me out. Imagine you somehow got your anxiety and burnout under control. But for some weird reason, when you're trying to flirt with a girl you like, you end up saying things that fuck things up, that self-sabotage your interaction. And then the next thing you know, she rejects you because you came across too insecure. I think this happens because if you're the kind of guy that's practiced flirting with women whilst you have number 1 or 2, you are likely to experience rejection a lot. And when you experience rejection whilst you're in this primitive fight or flight state, you will subconsciously associate rejection in a negative way. So then your brain will sort of expect that rejection more often. And when that happens, you're not really being your best, playful, chill self. You end up self-sabotaging without consciously realizing you're doing it. It's happened to me and a couple of friends of mine who are autistic. That's why if you have this negative self-sabotaging foundation, it's best not to focus your efforts on talking to women just yet. Otherwise, you might end up developing this toxic mindset where you feel as if it's you versus the girl. There we have it. 3 ways to improve your feedback loop quality. Let's just recap quickly what we've learned. So, In order to get good at socializing as fast as possible, simply going out and talking to people isn't good enough. You must practice effectively so that you get the most out of your practice. Practice becomes more effective through high quality feedback. To improve the quality of feedback, you must improve your FQF, your feedback quality factor. To do that, you must recognize the three main things that reduce your feedback quality and stop you from being yourself: burnout, anxiety, and a negative, subconsciously reinforced self-sabotaging mindset. Oh, that's a mouthful. If you think you have any of these problems, I hope you've gained insight from this video. If you liked it and you want me to make a video going into more depth on how I actually solved these three things, like this video, comment, and subscribe to show your support. Let's grow together.